Jim, good morning. Thank you for the time. Let's get you going here.
You got me on now?
Yeah,
okay, great.
there we go. Good
yeah,
to go.
Thanks, fellas.
So we were talking a little bit. The game last year, you guys featured 10 first-round picks, and an LSU tight end went over there and really made his name as far as his draft stock really started to take the rise there in Foster Morrow. A very successful game for you guys last year.
We did. It was a great first year of me working there. Eye-opening. My head was spinning a little bit, just learning on the job a little bit. But had a great year. We had double-digit first-rounders for the first time since 2011. Wow. And that's getting harder to do. In 2011 when we did it, there was 56 juniors in the draft. This past year there was 144 juniors.
Wow.
So it's just, you guys see it at LSU. Those guys leave every year. And it's getting harder to get good seniors actually to their senior year. Yeah. So to have 10 first-rounders, we were really proud of that number. And then, having Foster at the game was awesome. He really helped himself. It's just ironic that he got picked by the coaching staff that coached him all week. The Raiders the Raiders fell in love with him when they were down there with him. And talking to Mike Mayock over the summer, he did a great job through the spring. They're really excited about it. Sounds like Foster's got a chance to start this year.
Yeah, looking forward to watching him on Hard Knocks. And Phil Savage, who was your predecessor.
I mean, Oakland Raiders Hard Knocks is lining up to be unbelievable.
Must-watch television.
Perfect. Antonio Brown, incognito's in that locker room now. Let's go.
We get a chance to talk to Savage at this event, who was your predecessor, and of course spent some time at Alabama, now with the New York Jets. And he was telling me about building this game was all about relationships. I got to imagine as an 18-year scout in the NFL and traveling like you have over the last 20 years, you've got some really great embedded relationships within the game to form these rosters.
That's a big part of it. A big part of it is just, relationships with the coaches. We did something a little differently last year. I staffed the country with a bunch of former NFL scouts. We'd never done that before, and it was you work in football long enough, you're going to lose your job, right? It doesn't mean you're not good at what you do, but, regime changes, you get caught in the crosshairs, you're going to lose your job. So found 4 guys that got let go after last year's draft, and we're still under contract with their team. And, at the Senior Bowl, we don't really have an NFL scouting budget. So those guys, we got them on the cheap for a year, and they did an awesome job. I mean, we saw 105 of the 114 players we brought to the game live in games last year.
Wow.
So we had boots on the ground all over the country. So those relationships are big, relationships with the schools. And then with the agents, too. The agents can really control part of this thing, too. So it was you really lean on those.
Wait, and so, Jim, what's that process like when it comes to getting guys to come to the game? Like, because from my perspective as a player, if the Senior Bowl would have asked, I would have been there in a second. Do you actually have to recruit these guys, or are you just more kind of trying to wade through the chaff, right? Or are you just more selecting guys?
I think there's a little bit of recruitment, and again, you don't have a lot of exposure to them. It's like when you're scouting, you go into a school, you go into LSU. It's really not protocol for scouts to hunt down players.
You never really talk to them.
Yeah, it's kind of a hands-off deal. When you go to some of the smaller schools, I mean, they'll bring the players to you, which is kind of fun. You get to meet them, but so it's kind of hands-off with our process as well. So what we found last year was really connected on social media, which was really weird for a 45-year-old middle-aged white guy to get on.
Sliding in those DMs.
Getting on social media for the first time.
What's up, kid?
I've never even had a Facebook account before. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You managed to avoid all social media for this long.
Yeah, never
Jim,
been on
unbelievable.
social. So
wow.
we
now in the deep end.
Great job.
What we did last year is we had all the scouts at the games, and what they would do, they take little video clips during pregame.
Yeah.
T-Bob, if you were snapping and step in and, a linebacker doing drop drills. And then those guys would all send it to me, and I'd pump it out on my Twitter. And then what happened was we really did it to, pull the curtain back for the fans to let them show who we're seeing and looking at. And it turned out to be a great recruiting tool because
players loved it.
We started noticing the players following us and, retweeting stuff. I'm like, okay, we might be onto something here. So no, I think it got to the point with the Senior Bowl where if a guy thought he was going to be a first or second round pick, it was like, nah, I'm kind of too good for that, Yeah. And so last year was kind of nice. We reversed it and, got those 10 guys to come.
You spent some time at the Manning Passing Academy a couple of weeks back, which brings in the top passers from around the country. And then Joe Burrow was here yesterday representing LSU. I saw you sharing a couple of minutes with him yesterday as he was kind of walking podium to podium. What do you think of LSU signal caller?
Well, when I was at the draft this year, did some stuff with ESPN leading up to the draft. And so I was up in Nashville and did radio the last day. I did TV for a couple of days, did radio the last day with Ian Fitzsimmons. And he was telling me an awesome story about the Miami LSU game last year and how Joe was out there just talking smack with the D-line for Miami.
Dude, I love
and I was like, okay, I kind of that sounds like I'm going to like this guy. Right. And then met him a couple weeks ago at the Manning passing camp, and really just a cool kid, just a throwback dude, guy's guy. He coaches kid. I mean, there's a lot of cool intangibles to him, and then watching the tape, like it's kind of you shouldn't go into an evaluation with an expectation level. It's
that's a scouting based rule?
Yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up one way or other. But I mean, Joe's tape was better than I thought. I just thought I was going to see some like tough, like gritty.
Yeah.
And
it was that for a while. Like the first half of the season, it kind of was that, and then he started to come into his own, which makes sense. He was there like 2 months when the season started.
Right. Yeah, I heard Coach O saying that yesterday. Like, what a difference it is having a guy, through the whole offseason. And so,
I mean, can you imagine being however old he is, 21, born and raised in Ohio,
right,
and then moving to South Louisiana and having to assert yourself as the leader and like win the job?
Forget the humidity.
What? Yeah, forget about like the weather alone is absurd.
Right.
No, I agree, man. I think old school. He has a lot of old school quarterback vibes to him.
Yeah. What goes into evaluating a quarterback from your point of view? Somebody with your experience.
Yeah. Where do you start?
Because that's like such an inexact science. Guys that you think for sure will make it. It's like
it's everything. So that's why the Manning camp is a really cool thing for me to go to. Is I see him with his peers and kind of who the alpha is. Who really kind of elevates in that group, in that setting. So it's that part of it. It's the guy. It's the brain is a big part of it. It's getting harder and harder now with the apples to oranges comparison with college offenses to pro offenses. But really, if you're just asking like specifics of the position, to me, you got to start with accuracy. That's a really hard thing to coach. You can tighten up a guy's footwork, which can help accuracy, but if he's not accurate, he's not going to be accurate. So that's one. Decision making, two.
That's it. Accuracy, decision making.
Arm strength is really overrated. It's great if a guy's got a hose for an arm. If you've got Pat Mahomes' arm, well, that's great. That's kind of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But Joe's got enough of the physical stuff for sure.
Yeah, if you don't know where to go with the ball, then all the arm strength in the world ain't going to help you out.
So January 25th this year is the game. What's the schedule like? We see you at events like this. You're at the Manning Passing Academy. How's the season work for you guys?
We got to get you guys down to Radio Row.
We'd love to be there.
Yeah, we got to build out.
Definitely do that.
I'm going to spend the rest of my time down here just walking up and down Radio Row and trying to recruit some radio guys.
Yes, well,
it's really
sign us up.
When I went there a couple of years ago, I was working in New Orleans. We covered it. It is fascinating to see the football world and like the elite guys, like the biggest of NFL names, the entire football world just descend upon Mobile.
And that was the wake up call for me going to Nashville and seeing the draft. I mean, because really the draft is a kid walking across the stage and giving Goodell a bro hug and holding his jersey up. Like that's for a diehard fan. That's not really a lot. You come to Mobile, you can stand 10 feet from one-on-one drills.
Yes.
You can come over to the hotel and take a selfie with Baker Mayfield or one of these dudes we've had in the game. Because they're totally accessible. The players, they're even down here. There's fans are partitioned off here at the hotel. We don't do that.
It's so weird. The little fan holding pin that they have here at the front of the hotel.
It's kind of bizarre.
It's got like a livestock type feel. I don't like it.
And then we've got 900 NFL folks in town that we credential, and you walk up and down Dolphin Street, which is like our version of Bourbon Street, a little more tame than Bourbon Street. But you walk into a bar and there could be any GM or head coach just sitting there having a beer. So like if you're a diehard fan, it's an awesome week.
It was fascinating to be in some of those bars at night where, like you said, there's just so many alphas in the room. Yeah. It was like kind of like a snake pit. Everybody's kind of like eyeing each other a little bit, clicking up. But yeah, it gives you unparalleled access to those guys.
And so I came back from the draft and I started calling all the SB Nation sites, the guys that all those diehard NFL fan sites.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, what aren't we doing? What and they're like, Jim, I think everyone thinks your events for the NFL and for the media, and that's it. And I'm like, well, we got to do a better job of marketing to fans then, because it should be a really cool fan experience. We just in terms of how the whole week lays out.
Cool. However we can help getting the word out, we'd love to make the trip over to Mobile, because we've talked about that in some of our production meeting. We know it's a great spot.
Well, it'd be great for you guys because, like I said, 900 coaches and scouts, and then 115 players. Like you'll have plenty of guests.
Content, right?
That's right.
All right, Jim Nagy, he's the executive director of the Senior Bowl. He's also an ESPN NFL draft analyst, an 18-year NFL scout, 6-time Super Bowl participant, 4-time champion.
Damn.
And he's on Twitter at @JimNagy_SB. This was cool. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Sure. Jim Nagy from the Super Bowl, from the Senior Bowl, checking in here from SEC Media Days. We'll continue our coverage next here on Off the Bench.